Good night and welcome to In Focus, a production of the Barbados Government Information Service. I'm your host, Sharifa Medford-Gilkes. Tonight we examine one of the most pressing issues facing our country, crime, with a focus on gun-related violence and the impact of criminal gangs. As concern continues to grow, so too does the need for clear strategies and meaningful solutions. This evening, we'll be looking at government's short, medium, and long-term plans to manage crime, while also highlighting the prevention initiatives aimed at building safer communities. Joining us tonight are Minister of Legal Affairs and Criminal Justice Michael Lashley, Commissioner of Police, Barbados Police Service, Richard Boyce, and Director of the Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit, Cheryl Willoughby. And we want to hear from you, our viewers, so join the conversation by sending your questions and comments in the live chat on the BGIS YouTube and Facebook pages. Your contributions are an important part of this national discussion. Thank you all for being here. Ms. Willoughby, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minister, I'm going to start you with the first question. Can you tell us what we're seeing here in Barbados, the trends that we're seeing with the gun-related violence and criminal and gang-related violence?
Well, let me say good night to you and good night to all viewers. I think what we are seeing, of course, as you know, there's an increase in gun-related matters. So far for the year, we've had 23 murders committed, obviously, with the use of firearm. We're also seeing firearm-related matters. What is also an issue to be, we have to look at the age grouping, those persons who have been charged and placed before the courts for the commission of those offenses. In terms of gang-related activities, of course, we understand that some of these issues, some of the offenses too, are related to gang activity. How do we treat to that? Very shortly, in fact, we recently laid a bill in Parliament in relation to anti-gang legislation. Hopefully that will be debated on Friday. And I think that what Barbadians are really calling for basically is really immediate interventions and long-term interventions with respect to how we're going to treat to the issue of gun violence in this country and public safety and public welfare. And so it will have to be a multi-pronged approach. The question of prevention, the question of engaging civil society, engaging all of those agencies that can impact and of course touch those persons who are at risk and those who we want to keep away from the criminal justice system, those who are within the criminal justice system when they come out, and how we're going to treat them so that they will never ever again touch the criminal justice system. The question of enforcement, the question of how we're going to engage, of course, the police. Of course, you know, the police is an important stakeholder. Engage the community at large. And I must say that we want to have a one nation approach. And that is why you hear me sometimes speak about harboring. Because if the whole of the nation is on board, we cannot tolerate a small section of society who believe that it's right to harbor persons who are really impacting on the safety and welfare of Barbadians. So to me, Barbadians too also ask this question. We want swift justice, but how are we going to ensure that there's swift justice? The question is the system that is working in the criminal justice system, how are we going to put measures in place to ensure that matters are not delayed, that particularly gun-related matters, possession of firearm, possession of ammunition, murders, obviously carried out by firearms, how are we going to get these matters before the court? Because as you know, swift justice result in a reduction in crime. So the criminal justice system would have, as you know, previously the government passed made some serious amendments to the Firearms Act, came with a whole new bail act. Presently, and from my experience, I can say from my experience as a practitioner in the criminal justice system, that he always make this statement that a person who's charged with possession of a firearm, you only need 4 statements. Statement, that is the statement of the accused person. If he opts to give a statement, as the commissioner will know that, he can opt not to give a statement. So that would be 1 statement less. Statement from the ballistic expert, who would then say that this is a firearm under the laws of Barbados. Secondly, you would need the records keeper, who would come and say that this person never had a license for possession of a firearm in Barbados, and then the investigating officer. So there's 4 statements. But that would be 3 statements, and it would be 4 statements if the accused give a statement. So the question is, a person who is charged with firearm offense are 4 statements that you need to prosecute this person to take him from the magistrate level to the high court for a trial. Why should it take a year or 2 years? So you have to we put systems in place now, and they can tell you, and they can tell Barbadians that there have been a marked improvement because of the systems that the government has put in place in terms of case readiness and case management. So that is why we are now looking for, to establishing a gun court. This gun court basically now will be there to prosecute, not to prosecute, but to hear matters that are related under the Firearms Act, particularly possession of firearm, matters that are related, gun-related offenses. So I even say to Barbadians that from January, I can tell you that I know that there have been a marked improvement in terms of getting the case management and case readiness together. And the 2 gun courts will deal with cases that started in January, persons who were arrested in January, and then, of course, the backlog. So that can be seen as a long-term approach too, but also as an immediate approach. We have, when we look at prevention, we obviously have the National Peace Program. It's been a hot topic, but I can say to you that there have been positive programs carried out by the National Peace Program. I've visited and went to some programs, City Vibes, where we had a whole lot of young people there who are seeking for help and seeking assistance, and the National Peace Program actually assisted them. And then there are other activities, positive activities. People will say, it can't be just cricket, it can't be just football, just sporting activities. But we must make the point that sports by itself, sports will be a component of the preventative aspect of crime. But there obviously will be a component in there assisting those persons in developing life skills and making sure that they understand what it is to be a good citizen of Barbados. So we take it from there. We look at rehabilitation of the offender. What are we going to do to rehabilitate and reform offenders to ensure that when they spend or they finish their sentence in prison, that they'll be able to get back into society, reform themselves. And I'm very, 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 passionate in relation to offender monitoring. Even those who are on bail, we still have to monitor them. And the question is whether we can even start rehabilitation at the stage of bail. If we have evidence that you have been charged, you've indicated to the court, you've indicated to the prosecution that you want to plead guilty, let us start the rehabilitation process from there.
Okay. We're going to come back to some more of the elements of your long-term and short-term, especially short-term strategies, because I know members of the public are anxious to know what are we going to do now to try to maintain order.
I can speak to that now. The fact is that and I cannot go into details in relation to what the police will be doing, because of course there are matters of national security. But I can say to Barbados that obviously there's now an increased presence of police officers along with BDF soldiers on the road to ensure that there's peace and that the law and order is kept in Barbados. In terms of community policing, we've actually now looking to see how we can redevelop it and make it more palatable to those communities that we call the hotspots.
Okay, well that would lead me to you, Commissioner. Good night, thank you for being here.
Pleasant night to you, to all viewers.
I know there are a lot of things you can't say, but they're in the works. But how is the Barbados Police Service adapting to its operational strategies to respond to these criminal trends?
Well, the Barbados Police Service, we are well aware of what is happening in the country, and all members of the organization, they are on board with us. That is the senior command team, and addressing the whole problem of crime, and most definitely the firearm-related incidents. Now for us, it is a big undertaking to bring it under control. But fortunately for us, all members have come on board with us. Now, as mentioned earlier by the Minister, we have an increased number and support of persons from the Barbados Defense Force. And that has worked tremendously well for us. We are an organization now who is 200 persons short, manpower-wise. So BDF coming on board and partnering with us has made our job much easier. We've been able to put persons in certain locations to address these issues. Currently, we are looking at roughly 5 major groupings or gangs, that person want to call them. So we having persons in locations and carrying out the type of work that would bring this situation under control. We have been making some tremendous successes over the past couple of weeks and months, I must say. For instance, we look at the whole question of firearms, and we have been successful so far in taking 49 firearms out of the hands of criminals so far for this year. And when you look at last year, we only were able to take 22 firearms. So we see that increase, massive increase of taking weapons and ammunition out of the hands of the criminal element. And we are continuing those types of efforts to bring this situation under control. Now, we are far from completing that task because it is a never-ending journey when you come to fighting crime in a country. And we in Barbados are not the only country who are experiencing that type of situation. If you have looked throughout the Caribbean and further afield, you find that countries and law enforcement officers, they are fighting similar battles where crime and the criminals are concerned. So we are on the right track to see how things are going. And even though we see an increase in the murders this year by 6 when compared to last year, there is an overall point that shows us that we are managing crime in totality with a reduction. So in fact, we know that firearm can develop into multiple incidents, multiple crimes. So when a man or whoever it is discharges a firearm, looking at roughly 15 plus shots. So you can see the amount of collateral damage that can occur when persons discharge firearms. And we are looking to address those issues tremendously. Now, in terms of the firearms addressing that issue, we have put the analysis in place. We have deployed persons to go out there and work with us. We have partnerships with various agencies in Barbados and further afield, and those things are working for us. So yes, we have a good handle on the situation, but there are other players who are coming into the stream now of getting involved in firearm, and that type of player, unfortunately for us, and regrettably, persons in the age group 13, 14, and 16, that age group now, they are coming in the whole mix of getting involved in firearm issues and committing crimes, whether it is shooting some person, robbing some person, or whatever it is. It is of concern to us, and we are addressing that issue also. So just a matter of time before we get a good handle on what is happening and bring down the temperature, bring down the acts against those persons who are doing that type of criminal activity in Barbados.
Thanks for that. I know it's very obviously important to see how we are going to manage it, but I think it's good to understand why these things are happening. Mr. Willoughby, thanks for being here. Based on your data, what are the main drivers behind the recent matters that we are seeing across the island?
Thank you for having me, and good night to Barbados. The Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit, as you are aware, we conduct research to measure the nature and extent of crime in Barbados, and violent crime is included in that. Currently, we have a national victimization survey that is being conducted that will give us some key information regarding the victimization of Barbadians, as well as the level of fear in the country as it relates to violent crime. Late last year, around September or so, we conducted a study at the prison. We interviewed those persons who are on remand for murder and other serious offenses. And the information gleaned from that research that we conducted determined that there were several risk factors to violence. And I think the Commissioner just touched on it. One critical area that has my department very concerned is that we saw an early onset of criminal behavior. Those persons that we interviewed for gun-related offenses and those charged for murder started the criminal behavior as early as age 11. So it means that early onset of criminal activity is a predictor of persons getting involved in serious crime, and the Commissioner just alluded to that. We also saw it from that study that students who were either superannuated, meaning that they left school before age 16, those who were suspended, who were involved in multiple criminal activity within the schools, those are the ones who were coming out of school and getting involved in serious behaviors, right? Including gun-related offenses, including murder. So it means that early exit from school is a predictor in Barbados for young people getting involved in serious crime. It should tell us that we need to find alternatives to suspension from school.
Correct.
Alternatives for children being out of school early, so that we are able, when we see children within the school setting who are displaying certain behaviors, we can't exit them or get rid of them from school, but really we have to work with them and refer them to the necessary agencies that would enable some intervention. We also saw that quite a few of the persons, almost 90% of the persons that we interviewed at prison for serious crime had substance abuse problems. Marijuana was the chief, followed by alcohol. So that is a critical area that also needs some intervention. We have to look at these things within the school. I remember going to a police station at some point in time earlier this year to deal with a matter, and I saw a young woman from a secondary school in there who was taken out of school because she had marijuana in her possession. So these are things within the school system that we have to address. So early onset of substance abuse, exit from school, as well as those displaying deviant behaviors. We also saw that loose structure within the home environment. Children who came from homes where the value systems were non-existent. So it tells me that there was a normalization of deviant behavior within those homes. You have persons incarcerated for gun-related offenses, including murder, who it seemed as though there were no rules within the home. So that is something that we have to look at in terms of parent education, monitoring these children, making sure as social interveners that we go into the homes and see what is happening in those homes and take care of some of the issues that are confronting Barbados. So I'm just going to pause here so that if you have any further questions, but I do have some other risk factors that we can discuss later on.
Okay, we're going to get back to that, but we have a question coming in from the audience already. This one is from Suzette Thomp. Are law enforcement agencies targeting the networks behind crime or just the individuals carrying it out? Commissioner Boyce?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I can definitely say yes, we are targeting all players in that stream in terms of committing those types of crimes. Now, people will say that just the police can only arrest the little boy on the street. But it's more than that. We are looking at the full gamut of persons who are involved in criminal activity. And the person who sits at the head or on top of the tree in terms of the criminal attacks and behaviors, we are well aware what we have to do. It calls for a type of investigation, a tremendous manpower input where it's concerned. We look at wealth, unexplained wealth, and go after those things. Persons can hide behind fronts or blankets or whatever in the criminal world and get persons to facilitate their bad practices. But we are exposing our officers to the level and type of training that can make them efficient and successful in looking at these organizations and bringing them down. Again, we cannot do it on our own. We have partnerships with regional and international persons, entities who are on board with us, and we are following the trail. We're going after them, but it is not an overnight fix. It will take some time, and the essence of time, persons will be brought to justice for getting involved in that type of activity.
Thank you. Well, it is also important to have the officers in the community to maintain order. And some people have spoken earlier about the mobile posts, mobile police stations. Is there any possibility that they may be placed in the community for a permanent time rather than just a temporary placement in the communities?
Yes, we would like to have those caravans or posts placed in those locations indefinitely. But as we see things are simmering down in those locations, and persons get to understand that the police, we are their friends and not their enemies, and they change their behaviors, that is become law-abiding citizens and ready to follow the four corners of the law, not stepping outside those corners. And as long as we see the temperature, the criminal temperature dips or probably becomes non-existent, we sometimes will pull out our resources and put them in different locations where we're having flare. So sometimes it is semi-permanent, but most of the time we have to look and see which location, which hotspot needs the type of intervention and the police presence. So we will work from that angle of it and have those resources placed accordingly.
Okay. Minister, I think that it's important that persons understand the legislation as in place for criminal activities, gun-related violence, gang activities. I think that people don't understand the consequences that come when they do get involved in these kind of things. Can you speak more to the legislation that is in place or that is going to be on the cards for?
Well, as I said, the anti-gun legislation will be debated in the House on Friday, and it includes various provisions. Those who harbor gang members, those who get involved in gang-related activities. It carries a definition of a gang. It speaks to recruitment of members of a gang. It also speaks the persons who assist a gang financially. It also speaks to particularly recruiting a young person in a gang. So it covers a whole gamut of activity related to gang, illegal activities. As I said, it covers the harboring of a gang member, and the penalties are fairly steep in relation to what a judicial officer can sentence you for.
Can you give us an example of what penalties include?
Well, let me look at particularly the age, the years. Looking at, you can be sentenced for some 20 years and above 20 years. So, I mean, it is a very steep and harsh penalties. It carries also a summary conviction. And that summary conviction is obviously under 10 years. But it captures the whole gamut of persons who believe that they can assist a gang, that they can provide finance for a gang, that they can get involved in the recruitment of a gang. It covers that whole. And it also just carries a special definition for what we call, and in fact speaks to evidence that be permissible in gang-related activities. So it's a very thorough piece of legislation, and I believe that we are going in the right direction in relation to passing that piece of legislation.
Okay, thank you. We have another question coming in from the audience. This one is from Kalua Queen. Fast processing is needed and swift justice, not cases languishing almost decades. Minister would have alluded to this earlier. You spoke.
As I said, our criminal justice system, even in one particular case, it was classified by the Caribbean Court of Justice that our system, particularly our criminal justice system, is extremely slow. As you know, delay is a denial of justice. So what I said to you in the open, how are we going to, the question, and how do we get the criminal justice system moving in a swift manner? The problem is, how do we get disclosure ready? When they say disclosure, statements. Because if you charge a man, there have to be statements. Those statements include the prosecution case, speaks to this prosecution case. We have now to get those in the hands of the police officers who are prosecuting court. Then we have to move from there and get them into the defense lawyer's hand. And then, of course, the court will have to get them to. And then the court will then make a decision whether this matter could move forward to the High Court. Then after the High Court, the matter have to go to the DPP office. The DPP office then will have to decide whether, if it's committed, whether they're going to indict this matter. And the person will have to be arraigned. That's when they say arraigned, he has to come to trial and plead guilty or not guilty, and then the trial date is set. How do we solve this problem? As I said to you earlier, there have been a marked increase in the preparation of files by the police force since January. There have been a marked increase. I'm actually impressed by the numbers of cases that are ready for prosecution. What we have in store, quite very soon, we will have the criminal procedure rules being passed. And the criminal procedure rules, to my mind, I deem those rules, I deem them as, they are revolutionary within the system. Because for the first time in the criminal justice system, we will have obligations on the police in terms of how soon they can get their case ready. They have timelines. Obligations on defense counsel too, to decide when they're ready. Even obligations on the court too. So what we have now is a framework for case readiness and specific time limits for the prosecution to present a case, for prosecution to serve the defense, for the defense also to show the court that they're ready, and for the court, obviously, to put systems in place so that obviously rolling out adjournments, rolling out delays. So I think that is revolutionary. So I can say to Barbadians that there's an attempt to move this system faster and in a swift manner.
Thank you for that. So you're watching In Focus, where we're discussing government's approach to tackling crime in Barbados, including efforts to address gun violence and criminal gangs. Remember, you can be part of the conversation by sending your questions and comments in the chat on the BGIS YouTube and Facebook pages. We'll be taking a look at some of them when we return. We'll be right back.
As we observe the
Hi, I'm Aishari. I'm the producer of In Focus. We come up with the topics and we have to make contact with the guests, the panel, everything to make sure that everything is a show that people will be interested in seeing. And I'm also the voice in Sharifa's ear.
All right, question coming in.
Thank you for that. We have our first question for this segment.
Yes, coming in. That's one up for everybody. All right, next question. Next question. If you want to see the question again.
So if the crew needs to tell her something, get her to ask a particular question, she can always hear me throughout the entire production. Good.
The line, stay inside and pay the easy way online with the Pace Digital mobile app. Now you can pay for your renewed license, police certificate of character, and more via the Easy Pay Plus platform with the Pace Digital mobile app. Log into Easy Pay Plus, select the service and confirm. Select the Pace Digital mobile app payment icon for your QR code. Open your Pace Digital mobile app and select the Pace Digital Pay tab. Scan the QR code and confirm your payment. Visit us online to learn more. Don't have the Pace Digital mobile app? Download it today.
Just a Conversation, the podcast where we discuss the topics that matter to you.
From real stories to real talk, we dive into everything. No filters, no fluff.
We're talking about the issues you actually care about. Finance, mental health, sports, entertainment, and so much more.
It's not just talk. It's conversations that bring us together, challenge us, and keep it real.
Don't have time to watch? No problem.
Just turn on the video while you're cooking and we'll keep you company.
Listen on your morning commute, while you work out at the gym, or even when you get home on evenings and chilling out.
Wherever you are, however you listen, this is your space for real conversations.
Join us.
Join us.
Just a conversation.
Available on all streaming platforms or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at GIS Barbados to share your thoughts or to stay connected.
Crime and disorder are matters that concern all of us because they affect our communities, our sense of safety, and our quality of life. On our next In Focus, we'll be speaking with the Honorable Michael Lashley, Minister of Legal Affairs and Criminal Justice, about the work being done to reduce crime, maintain order, and strengthen public confidence. We'll also look at the challenges involved and why this issue requires both action and partnership. Join us live on Tuesday, May 5th at 8 p.m. on the BGIS YouTube channel and Facebook. And remember, we're taking your questions live during the program. So join the conversation and ask our panel anything in the chat. Follow GIS Barbados on Facebook and Instagram or BGIS Conversations on Instagram to stay connected. I'm Sharifa Medford-Gilkes, and this is In Focus. Welcome back to In Focus. If you're just joining us, we're discussing the crime situation in Barbados and examining strategies to maintain law and order. We have a number of questions and comments coming in, so let's get right into them. But first, we're going to hear from Ms. Willoughby about some of the other drivers affecting the uprise in crime right now at this time.
Thank you. What we saw coming out of that particular piece of research that we conducted was that 57% of those inmates who were incarcerated or on remand for either murder or some gun-related offense had other family members who were also involved in similar offenses. If I may give you some stats related to that, we had 29% for murder, meaning family members who were previously involved in serious crime, 20% for firearm-related offenses, 14% for robberies. So 80% of incarcerated relatives were males and involved also in serious crime. So when we look at the intergenerational aspect of offending, it means that these young people are coming from environments where serious crime is normalized and the value systems are not in place. So that is an issue. We also saw a similar statistic as it relates to substance abuse as well, where family members, fathers, uncles, brothers were also involved in substance abuse, either users or traffickers of substances. So it seemed as though, if you're looking at it from a researcher perspective, that persons who have family members who are involved in serious crime, they're at higher risk of also becoming involved in serious crime. So that it may mean that when we have young persons or persons going before the court or being charged for certain offenses, we may have to look at the younger ones coming up within that same environment to see whether or not, as the minister said, if we can arrest those problems early before these children become also involved in serious crime. So that is one issue that I think that we can look at from a sociological perspective, where we have a situation where we have persons involved in serious crime, gun-related crimes, murders, attempted robberies and so on, and look at some of the children who are also included in those environments. Another risk factor that we saw was that a lot of the young people who were incarcerated had precarious employment. They were either unskilled, and they were involved in employment that they probably did for a day just to get a little cash, and it was not long-term employment that they were engaged in. So these are factors that we have to look at, especially with our skill training and our after-school programs. How are we engaging our young people in activities that they can have skills and they can be employed or use these skills to gain lawful employment? So these are risk factors that we saw quite a few of them, especially the family structure that is of some concern to us, especially children from single mother households where there's the absence of fathers. Where you have a situation where over a 5-year period you have 240 men being murdered between 2020 and April 2026. It tells you that we have a problem, because these are men that were fathers. These were men that were brothers. Yeah, these are men that should be contributing to Barbados' productive sector, but they're deceased. Okay. So this is something that we have to really look at.
Thank you for that. Okay, we're going to go back to our questions from the audience. Our first question is from General 7. Is focus being put on preventing the entry of guns into the island? Minister, would you like to tackle that question?
Well, I can say that is the government's commitment and my ministry commitment to place focus and, of course, de-emphasis on how illegal guns enter into this country. I will not go into details how we're going to go about it, but of course that is indeed the focus too. We don't manufacture guns in Barbados. I respectfully, that is our focus, to stem and to get these guns off the streets and get them from coming into this country. You know?
So I guess for reassurance for the audience, we would say that security has increased at our ports of entry.
I'm not going to get to that, of course. I'll be looking at, of course, improving technology, improving the equipment, of course, the most modern of equipment to ensure that we can basically stem that tide and capture those perpetrators who are engaging in that type of activity, that causing this disturbance and impacting on public safety and welfare in this country. You know, I just want to make another point. The director is on track in relation to the fact that a lot of these offenses are committed because of substance abuse too, or what we call drug dependency. And, you know, I'm not ruling out the establishment of a drug court, because, of course, that drug court will help with the rehabilitation process. So I will not rule that out. I've advocated it already in my private life. Now that in public life, obviously I will make a case for it, that we have a standalone drug court that can now be part of the rehabilitation process. So that is the point I want to make.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from S. Manners. People are saying that the National Peace Program is a waste, with one person even suggesting the funds are being used by warring groups to fund guns, etc. How do you respond to this? Thank you for your question, Manners.
I must say that I've been a minister from, I believe, a couple of months ago. I'm still, of course, I've met yesterday with the National Peace Program. I can say that to the public. I've met with all the players. I've demanded reports for every single one of them. We are looking at not only refocusing, but we are looking at targeting those neighborhoods, targeting individuals, targeting those groups that we know, as the commissioner said, they are impacting on the safety of Barbados. And of course, you know, we now have to, and working along with the director, we will now channel the resources in those areas. Particularly, I've asked that, you know, when they go in, particularly in my constituency, I should be going around at 9 o'clock, on 9:30 or 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. I see school children on the road during a school week, or even if it's weekend. So how do we reach them? How do we reach the parents? So I said to the National Peace Program, let us now look at solutions to touch and concern them. And tease up programs. I can say that only this week, the director, I've received a wonderful document in terms of programs, and of course working in conjunction with the National Peace Program, that we now can reach out to those groups in terms of our crime prevention approach.
Okay, thank you for that. Our next question is from Kenneth Norval. These stats reflect a serious fracture in the family structure. How are these stats being utilized to inform decision making?
The information.
The information that you provided.
Well, as the minister said, we use our research findings to design programs for both primary, secondary schools and high crime communities. And we were able to, with the instruction of the minister, meet with him to produce a document that Barbadians, I'm sure, will be quite satisfied with in the future. And I just want to say that the minister spoke to it. He said that he was there for a few months, but since coming, I see the vision. And I'm confident that with the information that is gleaned from our research, that we can work together with the minister to have some solid programs within our communities, within our schools. And I want to say that this will be also be done in conjunction with the Barbados Police Service and all the other service organizations, as the minister said. And I don't want to keep saying that, but it is a fact that it is going to be a whole country approach based on the strategy that the minister asks us to look at. And I think that is what you would call visionary in terms of seeking to find solutions to the problem that we are currently experiencing here in Barbados. So our research is definitely used to inform policy, legislation, as well as programs.
Okay, thank you for that. We have a comment from Melvin Drayton, 8895. My suggestion as a deterrent and punishment is after an amnesty, anyone caught with an unlicensed gun goes straight to jail, no bail, then 10 years. What are your thoughts on his comment?
Well, you know, I have the phenomenal law. There have been various amendments to the Firearms Act. Historically, the firearms offenses, possession of firearm and firearm offenses, they were done at the magistrate's court. When they say magistrate's court, at the summary level. So a magistrate at that time could have no given bail to a person who was charged with a firearm offense or possession of firearm or ammunition. The law was changed now that you have, when you go to the magistrate's court on a firearm charge, you're remanded to prison. You have now to apply to the High Court for bail. The government has now done, in fact, before it came into government, the Bail Act was repealed and a new Bail Act came into action. It is based on the South African model, and in there you have a number of hurdles to pass and to satisfy the court that you deserve bail. But I must say that bail is a right. Bail is a right. So to say, and that is the issue, and they come back to my issue now. You cannot charge a man and keep him on remand, particularly a gun charge, for a year or 2 years, and have the person languishing in prison when there's a right for him to have his trial heard in a reasonable time and in a speedy manner. So that is why we come back now to treating those issues in the criminal justice system and to getting matters in a speedy matter before the court, so that even the issue of bail will still be there. You still have a right to argue for bail. But if you have the case before the court, well, and in a speedy manner, then sometimes some lawyers will say, you know what, but let us do the trial and let us forego bail. Well, you do the trial. But if the case don't start, a good lawyer then will make an application for bail. So, you know, So we have to when we speak this, we have to speak these things in the context of a person's constitutional right, in the context also of the public concerns and public safety, and what we represent as a country.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that, Minister. Our next question is from Paul Bentham, 5852. Has Mrs. Willoughby's unit found any correlation between the current proliferation of offenders charged with gun crimes who were previously charged as juveniles or were on probation orders? Thank you for that question.
That's
Paul.
a brilliant question, because I was about to speak to it. That 53% of the persons incarcerated or on remand for gun-related offenses already had interacted with the juvenile justice system. So there were repeat offenders, and also there were recidivists. Many of them were charged previously or incarcerated for other offenses, so that we are seeing not only young people becoming involved in serious crime, but we are seeing a repeat of serious crime being committed by the same cohort of individuals. So I am not an attorney, but it may mean that when it comes to justice, that we may definitely have to look at bail, as the minister spoke about, and not only bail, but also how do we monitor these people while they are on bail. So there must be a system, a strategy, whether it's electronic monitoring, something that has to be done in order to be able to keep an eye on persons who are on bail. I'm a strong advocate for the parole system, where after release you have supervised visits and making sure that persons reintegrate successfully and not go back into crime. Our recidivism study showed that after 6 months people were reoffending. So it means that there must be a system to be able to, that we are able to track these persons after they're released from prison, to ensure that they are not going back into the same environment, that the same criminogenic risk factors are not present in their lives, and that they're doing what they're supposed to do. I don't know if it is something that has to be court mandated, or if it is a system that we can put in place to ensure that when persons are released from prison, whether on bail or whether they have served their sentence, that they are monitored and they do not resort to going back into criminal behavior. A recidivism rate of over 60% is not acceptable in any stretch of the imagination. So it means that we have to do some work. The department is currently in the prison looking at the rehabilitation programs in prison, because there's a correlation between rehabilitation, reintegration, and recidivism. So that if the rehabilitation is not working in prison, chances are persons exiting prison will reoffend. So we are looking to strengthen rehabilitation in prison. So it's a whole country approach, looking at all the justice systems to ensure that at the end of the day we reap the results that we want.
Okay, thank you for that. We have another question from Victor Lashley, 4585. This one is for you, Commissioner. Will the Barbados Police Service accept outside criminal investigations training?
Yes. In fact, what I would say that we, over the past years, we have been engaging a person from outside coming to Barbados as training persons. If that is not happening, then we send persons overseas to receive the training. But we found that it was more advantageous for us to bring persons into Barbados at the Regional Police Training Center, and 2 instructors can train at least 40, 50 persons. So it is more beneficial and efficient to bring persons outside Barbados into Barbados to do that training for us. And we have been doing it, and we will continue to do it. In fact, we're doing it more now than ever before. So that is something that we will continue doing.
Is this training offered at all levels of the force?
Mostly the middle managers and the lower ranks. Those are the persons who we train those persons in bulk, 30, 40 persons one time. But for the senior command persons or the senior level persons, we send them to overseas to specialized training, management or whatever it is, they go overseas for that type of training.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Claire Best, 3536. Given what was said about the age of first offenders and the new policy which mandates all children to stay in school until 18 years of age, are adequate provisions being put in place at schools?
Well, that's part of the strategic plan that the minister spoke about. So I'm sure that in the future, Barbadians will be hearing a lot more about that from the minister regarding what are the systems now that will be in place to ensure that children who are exhibiting certain types of criminal behavior or certain risk factors, that those are dealt with early, because we're not only going to look at the risk factors, but we are also going to look at skills, soft skills, self-esteem, the family. So it's going to be a holistic program that we are looking at. And I'm sure Barbadians will hear a lot more about that in the future from the minister.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Ian Parker. What measures are the minister considering to address the easy money culture, which is at the main root of economic criminal activity in the country?
Well, as I say, the easy money. He said the easy money culture.
Yes, easy money culture.
That statement is so wide that the Commissioner of Police actually alluded to it, in that how are we going to strengthen the financial intelligence arm of the police? And indeed, we are actually focusing on that. And of course, you know, you have the Proceeds of Crime Act was amended. It's now called the Proceeds of Crime and Instrumentalities Act. And that gives the police and prosecutors the opportunity to deal with unexplained wealth. I mean, the question is, how do we go about it? How do we gather that evidence? Because from my experience, I don't recall a number of cases going before the court for persons explaining, for them to explain their unexplained wealth. You understand me?
Yes, understood.
It is really a specialist area, and it calls for tremendous training, particularly with those who are in the process of evidence gathering. It also calls for training for those who are prosecuting it too. So it is a multi-pronged approach, respectfully. And no, we have to also drive into the culture too of young men and women, that, you know, we've developed a culture of hard work and earning money from hard work. And that, you know, fancy things and fancy cars should not really be the focus of those young men and women, but really to work hard and to work for an honest dollar. So it involves the Ministry of Education, of course, our ministry too, working together, working with all stakeholders to ensure we get the messages out there that, you know, we built our society on hard work, doing the hard work. Some of our parents went overseas and worked in the winter and came back and make an outstanding contribution to Barbados. And they have young men out there, young women, who too are business people and who are working hard too. And so all is not lost. But what I'm saying, the whole of nation approach is necessary. At the end of the day, the government and all stakeholders have a role to play. But there's a bigger role for those persons who live in those communities. Not only the hotspots, but all communities throughout Barbados, to assist in this fight and for us to work together.
Thanks for that. Our next question, again from S. Manners. Some are saying the penalties for murder, etc., are not strong enough, and that we need to bring back capital punishment as in some other jurisdictions. Is this something that government is examining?
Well, you know, I wish I could speak to that, you know, but of course, I believe that, you know, capital punishment is still on the books. No? It's still on the books, but only in certain instances. The amendment was made where in certain instances the state can ask for death penalty. But let me say this, that, we should work on the preventative aspect. And then, of course, we cannot say to the court what penalty, because there's a separation of powers. But I have a personal view, but I don't think now is the time for me to speak in relation to death penalty, because I don't want to tie anybody's hand or tie the government's hand.
Okay, understood. Before we go on to the next question, though, we are talking about protecting and maintaining order, but I think there's also a need to reassure persons who are literally at home and scared. And I think the police also has a role in that aspect as well, in their community policing. So it's not only about being out here to stop the offenders, it's also about giving that level of comfort to other persons who are not involved and not sure what's going on, not connected to that kind of world. So can you tell me more about the police's role?
Yes, the police role is one of engaging members of the communities, and we know that recently the elderly persons in Barbados have been under attack somewhat when it comes to young persons robbing them of their money and other assets, valuables, and the presence of the police officers interacting with the senior persons in society has paid off tremendously well for us. Persons needed to be told how best to protect themselves, when to wear and where to wear jewelry, not in the exposed in certain locations, leave the jewelry at home, if anything, wear costume, because some persons are very, very, very keen of having the most expensive jewelry on display, which is very attractive to the criminal element. So those types of intervention going into communities, having those dialogue with members of the public can reassure them that the police is there as your friend and to help you. And those tips, crime tips, how to prevent things from happening, how to displace persons who are keen or bent on coming and attacking you. So we need to continue that effort, engaging members of the public, especially those persons who are less able to protect themselves. We in the organization of the Barbados Police Service see as our duty to engage those persons and make sure they do the right thing.
Thank you. Back to our audience. Our next question is from Ian Parker. Has anyone assessed the link between the use of younger people as utensils by older persons as a way to avoid themselves from going to prison?
No, we haven't done any researches yet to look at whether or not there's a correlation between persons who are older engaging the youth in criminal activity, and that is something that we can possibly look at in the future. But it will call for a self-report study, and with self-report studies, persons are not always truthful. Right? It is often difficult to generalize or come to conclusions when it comes to self-report studies, because people will tell you what they want you to know or to hear. So for a youngster to say that my uncle is the one who sold me a gun, that may be difficult, but I'm saying that it is something that you can possibly explore, especially if you can guarantee anonymity in asking the questions so that there are no identifiers when you conduct the survey. So it's something that is possible.
Okay, thank you. We have a statement from Kenneth Narvel. The time has come when enrollment in disciplinary programs for school children must be made mandatory. Do you have any thoughts on this before I go on to our next question?
Well, and again, that is something that is in the pipeline, included in the strategy the minister has commissioned, and I'm sure the minister will be able to speak about it in the future. So wonderful ideas, but we are already on top of those ideas.
Okay, well, we're definitely going to have more information from that report, and I'm sure Government Information Service will be sharing that information, so you can stay tuned for that. Our next question is from Frank Gilkes, 744. Can we use local artists to mount a campaign teaching our youth that being in a gang is far from cool?
I support that. In fact, I was approached by some artists already. I love music. And of course, music is one of those mediums that you can reach young people fast. And so, I don't have any problem in using local entertainers to get a positive message out there to young men. So I will support that, and my ministry will support it, of course. And role models. There are entertainers that are role models in Barbados that I'm sure that will do a good job in touching and reaching those young persons and other persons who are involved in the criminal justice system.
But outside of the ones that are popular, as you say, and are good role models, are seen as good role models, because I believe anybody has the potential to be a good role model, we have a lot of DJs that people hang on their every word. We see them on at the different events. I think there may be a need then to do some training with them to show them the impact that they have on their audiences.
Correct.
To kind of steer their message down something more positive and encourage them.
I'm open to that too. I'm open to that too. You have some popular DJs. You have Sharifa, you have Lil Rick, you have Rico Love. You have all those popular DJs that we can utilize.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Our next question is from Kenneth Norval again. These stats reflect a serious fracture in the family structure. I think we had this question before from Kenneth. How are these stats being utilized to inform decision making? We definitely had that question already. Sorry about that.
Not that beyond the family structure. We must also focus on the victims too, because we don't know what impact it will have on the victim, relatives, or even the deceased relatives down the lane. Anger might step in. Anger might lead that dependent or relative or deceased down a road of crime. So we also must now put our watch and tentacles on them to ensure they don't, again, move towards the criminal justice system. And I think that is important. So we have to be a holistic approach. Not only be working alone on accused persons, but also the victim, the impact have on the victims, impact on have on their relatives and dependents.
Okay, you want to add to that, Ms. Willoughby?
I am the ministers on the ball, because you will find that with victimization there are consequences, whether it is a financial consequence or an emotional consequence. And I often say that when you have a victim of a homicide, you also have the accused person who is going to lose their freedom. So a family will lose someone through death, and another family is going to lose someone through incarceration. So there's trauma for both families. So I agree that we have to look at both the victim and the accused person to see how, as a country, we can get in there and address any fallout that may occur as a result of a victimization.
Okay, great. Our next question is from... Okay, this question is from Kenneth again. The COP, the Chief of Police, Commissioner of Police, 3 weeks ago said he knows who the people are that committed the homicides at Thunder Bay. How have there been any success thus far in apprehending any of these people?
What I will say is that the investigation is ongoing. It is still fresh in the minds of the investigators, and a number of persons are brought into custody, they interviewed, and we are building the case against those persons. So the investigation is at a delicate stage at this point in time, and we will continue going down that road to have that matter fully investigated and the culprits brought to justice.
I dare say that matter and all other pending matters at this time.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay, our next question is from Victoria Lashley, 4585. The present crimes in Barbados require undercover operations to infiltrate the criminal groups. Are you willing to undertake undercover operations in Barbados?
We are currently working and considering going on that road. It all depends on the type of crime that we are investigating, because we will not have all the skills at our disposal locally. We have work with outside agencies, continue to work for outside agencies who have those types of skills. So when we find ourselves not having that level of expertise within our realm, that is Barbados, then yes, we can reach out to a particular country or countries and have those persons come on board and work with us. So that is nothing new. It's happened in the past and it will continue to happen going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. We're getting ready to wrap up, but I would like to hear from each of you some words of encouragement to Barbadians, those who are, as I said earlier, scared, they're not sure what's going on, and then words for those who may be involved in the criminal element that we're seeing right now. Minister, can we start with you?
What I would say is that the role of the government, our role is to provide and to facilitate the work of the law enforcement agencies, particularly the police, providing the necessary resources through the use of technology. So there will be an increase in surveillance, there will be an increase in, of course, criminal prosecutions. I would also say too that it is a multi-pronged approach, not only enforcement, but of course prevention, crime prevention. I think that we will provide in the circumstances, I think we will provide whatever is necessary, whatever it is financially prudent to assist all stakeholders who are involved in crime prevention. And let me say this too, that we will continue to strengthen the legislative arm. We will continue, we've actually now finished the anti-gun legislation. We finished the work in relation to the gun court. We're looking at the criminal procedure rules, and we're looking at other pieces of legislation that would enhance and strengthen the criminal justice system in terms of prosecuting those persons and also in terms of aiding and enhancing the criminal justice system, giving the tools to these stakeholders. I would say to those persons, and particularly the community, to come together to help us in this fight. It is a whole nation approach. I will continue to repeat it. It's a whole nation approach. To those persons who believe that is all right and that is a decent thing to harbor persons that they know commit crimes, or that they know that are assisting and aiding and abetting in the commission of an offense, they too should be warned. They too should be warned. And of course, I will say to Barbadians that I'm confident of the work of the law enforcement agencies. The Commissioner of Police have said that they stepped up the presence, but we also need their support, their full support in this matter, for the love of our country and for the sake of our children.
Thank you. Mr. Willoughby?
I am confident that we will have measures in place to address the risk factors. I want to assure Barbadians that it's not just a criminal justice problem, but is, as the minister, a whole country problem. We are not just looking at it through law enforcement, but also we are tackling those risk factors that we are that we glean from our research in our young people. We are working together with all the agencies involved, even people at the community level. We are engaged with them. And one thing that Barbadians can be assured of is that the resources are there. We have the resources to work. We come to work every day to deal with this issue. And I think that in the end, we are going to make tremendous strides in terms of stymieing what we are seeing within our communities.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Boyce?
Yeah, from my angle, what I would say, I would want to make a determined appeal to parents, guardians, and other caregivers in respect of persons between that critical age group. That is the 13, the teens, and rein it back in from the acts, violence, and criminal activity. What I'm noticing is that some adults who were in the crime system for some time, they are now grooming these young persons into the crime aspect of it. And we want to stop them from doing it. So we ask persons now to look after the teenagers in the family and rein them back in so that 2 to 10 years from now, we will not have a balloon effect where these persons are terrorizing the entire society. So now is the time to put down our feet and bring these young persons back into civility, love, peace, camaraderie, and togetherness in Barbados. We need that going forward.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. As we come to the end of tonight's program, it's clear that addressing crime in Barbados will require sustained effort, collaboration, and a strong focus on prevention as well as enforcement. I want to thank our panelists for sharing their perspectives and helping to shed light on the way forward. And thank you to everyone who joined us online and participated by sending in your questions and comments. Your voice matters in shaping these important conversations. Until next time, I'm Sharifa Medford-Gilkes, and this has been In Focus.